Oh, I wish that you hadn't pulled the trigger. Shut me down with my bitter heart. My blood is
Sociopath stalking me and my friend.
Shut me down,
I have pushed this from my mind in the past couple of months, because any activity has seemingly stopped. Yet somehow I knew this silence was too good to be true. And eventually we'll hear from him sooner or later, again. It all started a few months ago. A guy messaged me on Facebook, and unlike the usual creepy messages I get, this one sounded intelligent and funny. We started chatting from time to time, talking about everything and anything. He said he was divorced with one child, and I emphasized every time he would complain about his ex-wife, even though it also kind of bothered me that he would still tell all those personal details to a virtual stranger after all. No matter what happened between them, she was still the mother of his child. Have some fucking respect. We continued chatting, and I'm getting more and more relaxed. We were at the stage where we often discuss our daily lives, and inevitably, I talk about my best friend, with whom I am extremely close. We are like sisters. At that particular time, she has been very busy with changes happening at her work and some issues with a guy she met, but said things are complicated, and she will explain in details when there is more time to meet. Now keep in mind that under normal circumstances, I would have known every little detail about that, but as it happened then, there wasn't sufficient time to properly see each other and talk, so I only knew the basics, no names, no pictures, etc. So, I am talking to my guy. For the sake of privacy, we'll call him Jake. And I started taking notice that every time we do, he would casually direct the conversation towards my best friend, Jenna. I had mentioned to him that we know each other since we were babies, practically grew up together. So he would always ask me to tell him funny stories from our childhood and teen years, then proceed inquiring about what she's like now, what kind of guys she likes, etc. I would jokingly ask if he got tired of me and wanted her number, but he would deflect it with awkward humor, so I didn't really think anything past that. Some time has passed, and things are a bit calmer at Jenner's work, so we finally get to meet for drinks. Inevitably, we start discussing Jake. I told her about him, and she is smiling and nodding, until I take my phone out and show her his pictures, and she goes pale in the face. She grabs my phone and says, "This is him. This is the guy I told you about." At first, I assume she is joking, as she is prone to messing with me, but she looks dead serious, so I start asking questions. Turns out, she met him on a dating app. They talked first, and she was under the same impression that he was smart, charming, and cultured, so when he eventually asked her out, she gladly accepted. They went out, had drinks, talked, and everything was fine, until by the end of the evening, he got a little too grabby and insistent for more than a goodnight kiss. He insisted to drive her home, even though she had her own car there, and suggested that he could pick her up in the morning to get her car. Since she didn't want to know where she lives, and she was annoyed at his advances, she refused and managed to escape him somehow. She told me that she was afraid he would follow her home, so instead, she went to a bar where a friend of hers worked after that. The next day he called her and apologized for his behavior at the very end of that specific evening, blamed for the drinks and the stress at his work, and then told her he had to admit something to her, because he really liked her and wanted to be honest with her. She agreed and they met again, when he admitted that he was actually in the process of getting a divorce, but hasn't yet filed for it, and he was still living with his wife and small child, because she didn't have a job, and he couldn't just leave her alone tending for their child before she was financially stable. Jenna, being the blunt gal she is, called bullshit at his story and accused him of being yet another married man out to cheat and using false excuses for sympathy. The guy worked as a sales rep, so he was really smooth and convincing, so I don't know how, but he managed to appease her doubts, at least to a point of not cutting him right off there and then. Some time passes and he chats to her online, calls her and they talk, but she tells him that the only way she would ever consider getting intimate with him would be if she sees proof that he is actually divorced and lives separately from his family. One day he calls her and tells her that he will put his wife on the phone to prove to her that even though they live together, they sleep in separate rooms and are technically separated. That woman's voice really confirms that, but it leaves Jenna more puzzled than reassured. She is conflicted because despite everything, she actually likes the guy, and is therefore worried to not get herself into a mess if she falls deeper and deeper into it. She is still hesitant to accept his invitation to meet, so one day, he accidentally walks past the place she works at exactly the time she finishes work. What are the chances, right? And she agrees to go grab a drink, as long as they talk and act platonic, he promises. And apparently, that is also when she tells him about her life more, childhood, etc., and where I am brought up into the conversation. He listens attentively, and afterwards, when she and I compare timelines, it turned out exactly a few days after that my guy friend starts to message me on Facebook. We are both livid and incredulous, so we decide to confront him separately and then compare notes. When I get back home, I text him, asking why he lied to me that he was divorced, when he clearly is still living with his family, and more importantly, why he started talking to me when he was already seeing my best friend. He was unprepared for that, but he bounced back quickly and gave me some bullshit explanation about how he was curious about me when he heard so much from Jenna and wanted to see what I look like, so he went through her Facebook friend list and found me. Mind you, she hasn't added him on Facebook, so he basically stalked her profile to gather that type of information. Just like she didn't exactly tell him where she worked, yet he knew to accidentally walk past there. When Jenna confronted him, he told her that he was just curious and wanted to hear about her from that person that knows her best, her best friend. She told him that it was wrong and creepy on so many levels, but he insisted that he had no bad intentions, and that he just liked her so much that his curiosity got the better of him, etc. What the fuck? When we compared notes after that, Jenna and I decided to just stop talking to him whatsoever, because the guy is a liar and extremely weird. We each tell him that we don't want to talk to him or see him again, and even though he is shocked and tried to convince us otherwise, he eventually accepts that, and says that if we change our minds, he'll be happy to talk. We think that it's over. Oh, the naivete. At first, he seemed like he would take it well, but then he would accidentally send a picture or a message which was intended for someone else but mistakenly be sent to me or Jenna, so that he could initiate a conversation with us. He would attempt to ask her or me out again, getting refused and then retreat again, until the next accidental message or call. Then the random bumping into each other ensued. Wherever we would go, on my way to work, at the market, at a cafe, at Jenna's gym, he would be there, of course. It was all random coincidence, right? We start to get more annoyed than anything at this point, but still thought that he was a lying bastard, but still harmless enough. So there was not much we could do, except wait it out, thinking he would eventually move on. Wrong. One day, Jenna comes to my place freaked out, and she tells me that she was on a date with a new guy she met, and she saw Jake passing by the restaurant she was in, and then later he called her in hysterics, screaming at her, "Look what you did! I can't get you out of my mind! Because of you, I got so angry that I hit my child, and chased my wife out of the house in the cold." She got fed up with him, so she told him to never bother her again, and to go seek a therapist because he clearly has issues, then blocked him. That creeped us both out, because not only wasn't he moving on, he seemed to have been escalating and getting more and more aggressive. I told her that, if he calls her again, she should threaten him with calling the police and reporting that he was allegedly abusive towards his family. We are in the middle of discussing that when I get a phone call from an unknown number, and normally I don't pick up on those, but I was also waiting for a package delivered that day and thought it might be from the courier company. It was him. He was crying. He was sobbing on the phone, pleading with me to convince Jenna to unblock him, that it wasn't fair and I had to help him. He sounded like crazy, to be honest. I was shocked to hear him in the state. It was such a contrast to his normally smooth demeanor. So I calmly told him that he should act like a grown man and calm down, and that it is not my place to convince her about anything after she has made up her mind, especially after his crazy behavior and threats about hitting his child and chasing his wife out. He then told me that he didn't really do that, but he wanted to make Jenna feel guilty and scare her into talking to him, and he said that. He started apologizing profusely about it, and said he was at his wit's end and didn't know what to do. I told him that this has gone far enough, and that he's a 35-year-old man, so he should act like it, and that if he ever proceeds contacting or stalking us again, we will go to the police. I hung up and blocked him as well. The police threat seemed to work. Finally, we haven't heard from him for about 2 months. But yesterday, Jenna and I were at a birthday party at a club, and guess who was the birthday's girl's +1? My ex, the privileged sociopath. We all have that one ex that just grinds our gears. But mine is fairly more creepy than the average drunk texting arsehole. About 3 years ago, I was in a long-distance relationship with a younger man, meaning he was only 17 years old at the time, while I turned 19 in the relationship. His name is Peter. Peter was not a nice person, to say the least. He thought that the first impressions he made on people were the only one he needed, and as such he stopped being nice, polite, or reasonable to people after the first meeting. I was young and saw past this, thinking I could somehow change him. However, his abuse towards people around me and myself eventually became too much, and I broke off the relationship with him. The breakup went smoothly, all things considered, except he wanted me to say the words so he could play the victim. This had been a core element of our fighting, because he hinted that he wanted the breakup, but instead of just saying it, he kept me on the hook and became even more abusive. I'm getting sidetracked, but the point was that I thought of the matter as resolved, and entered a loving relationship with my current boyfriend shortly after this. Then came the day where Peter wanted to get his belongings back. I texted him a list of everything he had left in my apartment, and he okayed that it was everything. We also made an appointment for him to stop by my apartment around 3 p.m. the following Thursday. I have no intentions of letting him back into my home nor being alone with him, since he suddenly seems to have many mood swings after seeing me in another relationship. He has been blocked from my Facebook account, but somehow knew I was in a new relationship, which was a major red flag to me and my boyfriend. Thursday came and I felt eager to just be done with it. My boyfriend and I are walking home from high school. When my phone rings, it's Peter. He yells at me that he's been waiting at the train station for over an hour. I tried to reason with him, agreed to meet him there with his belongings, since he needs to catch a train. My boyfriend walks with me to the train station, but we only arrived to find it vacant. I live in a small town and the train station is mostly used during rush hours in the morning and evening. It is also located rather bizarrely amongst normal residences, and there are a lot of off alleyways leading all over town from there. I get a text stating that Peter can see us, but won't come out of hiding when my boyfriend is there. We leave his stuff on a bench at the train station, calmly replying that I'm not actually interested in a meeting with him. When I say calmly, I mean that my reply is calm. I'm shaking, and my boyfriend is furious over this child's play. On our way home, I received another text. This time, he states that he has a gift for me and it is in my mailbox. This freaks us out even more, mostly because this indicates that he might be waiting at my home. It is entirely possible that he watched us on the train station and then ran all the way to my apartment. However, there is no trace of him, and nothing except a bill in my mailbox. By now, we figure that he is acting out of spite and proceeds to ignore the bombardment of texts, calls, and so forth that follows that day. After a while, life returns to normal. Then I get another call, this time from my ex's elder brother, who is worried about his sibling. Apparently, he has disappeared, taking one of his brother's gas pistols as well. I'm speechless, but haven't seen anything. I shake it off as another childish act. The same day, my boyfriend sees police officers walking around the basement staircase on the exterior of the house we lived in while doing some grocery shopping. He did this every day around 4 p.m. The next day, we are contacted by my boyfriend's mother. In the newspaper, there's a description of an unnamed young man from the same town as Peter, who had been arrested for attempted robbery of the pizza place I lived above. He was armed with a knife, a gas pistol, and lighter fluid, while saying that he was not attempting a robbery, but was there to visit his ex, presumably me. Contacting the police, I discovered that he also had a mask, fake papers, and a wig in a duffel bag, which he had thrown down into the staircase when, around 4 p.m., he had jumped a fence and tried to enter the pizza place. This means that my boyfriend went out of our front door, while my ex was hiding right beside the door, armed. I'd never been that freaked out before. The sad truth is that my ex never got charged with anything, because he is a minor, has a father with a military background and money. I write this now because after 3 years of this, I thought that this horror story was finally a closed chapter. That was, until I received a declaration of love from a fake email account signed Peter. I received this just 2 weeks ago. A sociopath at my door and on the phone. So, I was around the age of 12 when this happened, and I had a sleepover with a friend. We were very close, and I had 2 dogs with me, a black and white Newfoundland and a teacup-sized Yorkie. And around that age, I was paranoid enough as it was. Always following me around, yet I've been told I'm very stubborn and challenging, especially as a child. So, while we were watching a movie, my phone rang. This was in 2013, and I was so annoyed, but I picked it up anyways. Hello? Just heavy breathing on the other line, and I was confused. Then it hits me alongside the head. I ask, "Who is this?" The reply kind of freaked me out, though I didn't know why. "My name is Mark, and I'll be your telemarketer for the rest of the day." His voice was very ominous and gruff, like he was trying to disguise his voice somehow. I smiled and turned to my friend. "Telemarketer, do you sell?" My friend stared at me intensely. "Adult diapers?" My friend, on the other hand, was giggling. "No. I sell people. To others who can make you feel good." My eyes widened and I turned my head. "You never told me your name." I laugh and nod. "Well, I'm not telling you that. What are you wearing?" "Do you have clothes on?" My heart skips a beat, feeling as though that was inappropriate to ask a 12-year-old girl. "That's not really how it works." I furrow my brow. "I won't tell you if you don't." My face scrunched up and I tried laughing it off as some stupid joke. "I'm kind of watching a movie. I gotta go now. Bye." I scream into the phone quickly, hanging up and skipping over to my friend again. The phone rings and I get up to answer it. "It's rude to hang up on people, you lousy little shit." It was the same man again, yet he was much more aggressive. "Apologize to me now." My words were stuck in my throat, and my body was shaking. It was clear to Mandy. She walks over to me, yet I still had not given the man an answer yet. "Apologize. Apologize now." My friend immediately takes the phone and hangs up. "Who was that?" she asks. I shake my head and start to walk back over to the couch. This time, it was a violent knock on the door. I'm shaking. The color was drained from my face and I covered my face. "It's Mark." I shake my head, covering my face. "I'll break down the damn door. Let me in." I stand up and walk over to the door, on the brink of another breakdown. I have the cops on the phone." I prayed that he would leave. I was shaking, trembling at that moment. "Liars get beaten." I shriek at the top of my lungs, now knowing that he had knowledge from the inside. He could see inside my house. My friend is sobbing, scared and tired. We couldn't do anything about it. A loud bang came from the front door. Good thing I heard a very loud scream. I let out a piercing shriek, which stops the banging at least. So I try again and I could hear him. "Be quiet, okay? It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." I continue screaming, completely astonished by his behavior, as if he genuinely thought he wasn't a threat, that I would believe him, of course. I could hear a few people from outside. I'm so happy. My neighbor is a very kind person, especially towards us kids. The man who was threatening us, his footsteps wandered off away. Thank you, God. For a few hours I was frozen. I couldn't speak, only cry. I didn't understand why he was looking for me. I'm not a serial killer, and I don't know if he is one. So, we were on the phone. "Let's not meet." Frog Boy. I went to a party a few months ago. I have social anxiety and I haven't had that eventful or festive summer, so it was a fairly big deal for me. I only knew the girl hosting it from a few other parties I'd been to earlier in the year, and the 2 months of school I'd gone to last fall, before I left to be privately tutored, but anyways. I didn't know that many of the people there except a couple of my closest friends. I didn't want to seem too clingy, since I actually knew everyone else there, and probably wanted to talk about things that I wouldn't understand. Luckily, the hostess's young 5 to 8 neighbor had come over, because he heard from her little brother that there would be s'mores. I'm a lot better with younger kids than older ones. He'd been looking around the edge of the forest. I asked him what he was doing. Looking for frogs. He loves frogs, my friend explained. We call him Frog Boy. Cute, I thought. I helped him find some. Later it was dark. We were still outside. I was standing by the driveway talking with someone. Simultaneously, my friend's mother, Mrs. H, stepped out from the house, bringing more marshmallows or something to the kids around the fire, and Frog Boy had his fist raised in the air. The lights above the garage door lit up eerily. He was about to hurl a frog into the pavement. Mrs. H screamed and tried to intervene, but it was too late. It was then that we noticed that this was not the first of his victims. Dead frogs lay all over the driveway. My friend's mother was in a tizzy and disturbed, but tried to act calm. I remember yelling at the kid, "You killed them? I thought you liked frogs." Everyone there came to see what was going on, and were just like, what the fuck, when they realized what was going on. It actually kind of like really killed not only the entire local frog population, but the partying mood also. Having dead frogs all over the place and actually noticing them anyways. Frog Boy was sent home by a visibly bothered Mrs. H. He hadn't said a word since he was caught in the act. He did not explain or apologize. I don't think Mrs. H's son is allowed to play with Frog Boy anymore, so yeah. I accidentally was an accomplice to a frog mass murderer.